2013 has been an interesting one for video games. Microsoft and Sony were both gearing up for the next generation of gaming, while support for their current gen started to slow down, with console exclusives being more focused on the next generation. PC gaming was the place to play all third-party games because they were more optimised for these systems, which the current gen consoles were starting to struggle with. It was also the year of the indie game, with small developers appearing on the PC, Xbox and PS3 like never before. The Nintendo Wii U had just reached its first birthday after a poor year of sales, and the popular 3DS got some of the biggest titles for the system this year, keeping this company afloat for the possible future. This year I played a combination of 38 games spread across all these platforms, and I am here to present to you my personal top 10 games of 2013. I have made some restrictions to this. I wouldn't include any DLC content added to a game if the game came out the year prior, but I will tip my hat to 2K, who have been supporting the excellent Borderlands 2 with the likes of Tiny Tina's Assault on Dragon's Keep. I am not going to include remakes or HD collections either, since they've had their time to shine when they came out. Again, I tip my hats to Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate, which I put over 100 hours into. I have also not included any games still in development as well, which includes Hearthstone, which is destroying my life at the moment. This list is my personal choices, so let me know what you think, and also what you think should be number one.
A famous explorer once said that the extraordinary is in what we do, not who we are.
Lara Croft has received a bad reputation of being glamorized for male gamers, but was also one of the first few female characters out there that girls could look up to for being a strong, independent character. This year saw a reimagining of Lara in the self-named title Tomb Raider on Xbox 360, PS3 and PC. It was an ambitious try from Square Enix, but the excellent story written by Terry Pratchett's daughter conflicted with the overall feel of the gameplay. You were seeing an innocent girl to violence and survival in cutscenes suddenly become an expert smartswoman, brutally killing hundreds of crazed male survivors. I think if more focus had been put on smaller encounters and the beginning being more about survival in these harsh conditions, this could have been a great origin story for Lara. It also didn't help that the tomb raiding you did was incredibly easy. However, this game was gorgeous to look at, and the open world structure rewarded players for exploring its massive world. Overall, this was a great first retelling of Lara Croft, and I'm looking forward to seeing what will be coming next, even though Square Enix announced this game failed even after selling 3.6 million copies. Oh well, at least next gen consoles get a chance of a definitive version out early next year for Xbox One and PlayStation 4. Brothers, A Tale of Two Sons crept out of nowhere this year when it was announced at E3 in the summer of arcade for Xbox 360 and later on the PS3 and PC. Made by the people from Starbreeze Studios, who are better known for making grittier violent games such as Payday 2, The Chronicles of Riddick and The Darkness. Instead of following the same style of gaming they are best known for, this fable-like tale follows two sons on a journey to save their father by finding a cure in a fantasy-based land. The journey spans many locations, all with puzzles that use one of the strangest control systems in gaming to date. Instead of you controlling one brother at a time, you're controlling both with each analog stick, big bro on the left and little bro on the right. This makes even the most simple of puzzles more about coordination between your thumb and brain, and half the time you'll be sending brothers in the wrong directions to where your brain wants to send them. What truly makes this game brilliant is how it presents itself visually. Each location is unique and you're never doing the same thing twice, from flying through the air, navigating through a giant battlefield, sneaking through a mine infested with trolls, or rowing through an ice-filled glacier. The story is charming and very fairy tale-like, with its grim undertones littered around the world. It will pull at your heartstrings, and it is accompanied by an excellent soundtrack as well. Rayman Legends is the sequel to the successful Rayman Origins from 2011, and this game has had an interesting history behind its development. Originally a Wii U exclusive, which was meant to come out at the beginning of the year, was delayed after Ubisoft decided to make it a multi-platform title. This delay caused outrage with Wii U owners, since this was meant to be a reason to own this console. Luckily it was the best in the end, since the Wii U owners got access to a challenge beta mode earlier this year, and the creators managed to add extra content to the overall experience and whole new gameplay modes as well. When it came out, the Wii U version was the definitive version, since the touchscreen implementations made the Murphy levels a lot of fun. If you had a version on the consoles and PC, you had to use a button prompt which wasn't as fun. The game was massive, containing 5 worlds with unique game types, tight responsive controls, great music, and an overall easy to pick up but hard to master control scheme. The main highlight was when you beat each of the main worlds, you got a music themed level which was superb and reminded you of Bit Trip Runner. If you were mental enough as well and got every single collectible in the game, you unlocked a bonus world with some interesting musical remix levels. If you're planning on getting this game, get the Wii U or PlayStation Vita version because the touchscreen really makes this game. This game is also available on nearly every platform and will be coming to the next generation as well next year.
So, the sniveling worms dare to defy the guild of evil aliens terrorizing humans with gigawatt bombs, energy beams, ray guns, and killer lasers? This time...
Well, let's get this out of here. Platinum Games may be one of the weirdest creative studios out there. From the creators of Bayonetta and Beautiful Joe comes the wonderful 101 for the Wii U. This game is a hybrid of Bayonetta and Pikmin and is one of the most insane games out there this year. You'll be controlling the wonderful 100 while they defend Earth from Gethjerk, an alien invasion out to destroy humanity. It sounds like something from a Saturday morning cartoon show, and the visuals really gives off that vibe as well, along with the script and voice acting. I will not deny, I had a big grin on my face playing this game and I really enjoyed how much it broke the fourth wall as well. What's great about this game is the control mechanics. You will control this army that can turn into a range of weapons which have their own unique attacks and abilities that will help you take out this alien army that comes in all shapes and sizes. It's fast paced, chaotic, and the best thing is, gameplay is ever changing and you will never be doing the same thing twice. The only critical thing I can say is the combat can seem very chaotic, and the control scheme's not very easy to pick up, but like all games from Platinum, once mastered, it is visually stunning seeing the wonderful 100 destroying aliens in a beautiful fashion. If you're looking for something different on the Wii U instead of your generic Mario title, then look no further than this game.
One goes into an experiment knowing one could fail.
One does not undertake an experiment knowing one has failed.
Can we get back to the rowing?
I suggest you do, but we're never going to get there.
BioShock Infinite is next up, and without a doubt a game that has had a lot to live up to after the success of the original game. 2.5 years in the making, this tale of a city in the sky instead of under the sea takes a different approach to storytelling this time around. Instead of being a silent protagonist, you take control of Booker DeWitt, who was tasked with rescuing Elizabeth from Columbia to pay off a debt to a group. It's not that simple, however, when your coming has been foretold as being the false shepherd who will lead the lamb astray. You'll be chased all over this spectacular city with lots of twists along the way, with one of the more intriguing science fiction stories that you come to expect from the BioShock franchise. The combat is however a bit out of date, using the same one from BioShock with tonics instead of plasmids and your generic pistols, shotguns and machine guns. It can all get a bit repetitive since you'll be facing mainly human enemies whose strategies don't really change throughout the game, and there are only a few special enemy types that you'll encounter which spice up the game, but still feel way too few. They do try some new things like skyline rails to zip around the map, and also ripping out items from different locations that allow you to summon in ammo, cover, turrets, robots and more to assist you in combat. But that doesn't really remedy the overall problem with the combat, since it gets very old fast and you'll be depending on story as the main driving force to get you through to the end of the game. If you don't like first person shooters, either play this on easy or just watch BioShock Infinite the movie that has all the story cutscenes in one video without the combat.
You're not coming in. You're not on the list. I am now.
The Devil May Cry series received a much needed reboot this year after the fairly average Devil May Cry 4. I've always been a fan of the series since the original PS2, so it was great revisiting the world with a whole new perspective and storyline. Dante is no longer the white-haired cheeky so-and-so we've come to love, but now an arrogant prick with an attitude problem. He knows about demons, but doesn't care till the main villain of the game wants to make sure he's dead because of some magical prophecy. What makes this game stand out from the rest of the series is the level design and the creativity that's gone into it. The world is two parts, Earth and then Limbo, a twisted demonic version of Earth as we know it. It is jaw-dropping and stunning to behold, and is one of the most powerful things about this game. The character progression is also really well done along with the story, but some people found it too generic and sometimes puerile. I, however, enjoyed it and was upset seeing people who reviewed it on Metacritic give it such a low score because it looked different and accusing the game of killing someone in the story that they shouldn't have. I appreciate what they did and I wasn't offended, especially when you consider who it was and who did it, since it added more to the story and how each of the characters progressed from there onwards. The combat was tight and responsive and was one of the better Devil May Crys to get into, unlike previous ones that had a high barrier of entry to beat some of the first bosses in the game. Hardened fans did criticise it for this, but if they stuck with it, you could unlock some insane difficulties, including one being if you got hit once, you died. However, as you can tell, I really loved the visual art style of this game. It was one of the most beautiful and stunning games of this year. Rogue Legacy. Helpfully scratch my hardcore sadistic itch I get every year after gaming doesn't put up a challenge and handholds the player through everything. With a mixture of Dark Souls and Castlevania, this action platforming game tasks you with assaulting a castle which contains a diverse range of monsters, traps, treasures and of course boss fights. Sounds simple enough, but when your character only has one life, it can be treacherous tackling this castle in one run. But the game encourages you to die and learn from your mistakes, since your descendants in your family will take up the charge next in your task of destroying the evil behind this castle. You'll do this by expanding your keep and purchasing new upgrades with the gold you've inherited from your dead descendants, who found gold in the castle. This is where the Dark Souls mentality takes place. You're always progressing and upgrading your character through loot you found and pass on to your children. The game also has a lovely charm, like each of your children having different conditions such as colour blindness, farting uncontrollably, baldness, or even being gay or lesbian. Most of them have no effect, or they could change the properties of the game, and each playthrough can seem very different. Things will be ever changing in the castle, so don't expect to see the same things every time. The 16-bit visual art style is awesome as well, and the soundtrack reminds you of how good that music from that era was. Currently only available on PC, but will be coming to the PlayStation 4 and Vita next year. Nintendo was particularly cocky with this release of The Legend of Zelda: A Link Between Worlds. The game came out the same day as the Xbox One. After playing this game, I see why Nintendo was confident, because this may be one of the best Zelda games since the N64 titles. This new game is a semi-sequel to the SNES title A Link to the Past, and with that, the game is very nostalgic about its roots, but it isn't afraid to shake up the formula that is the foundation of this 25-year-old franchise. Instead of following a linear path, you can choose where to go first, and you won't be restricted since you can now rent every iconic dungeon item after defeating the very first dungeon. This gives players a more open world feel, and this in turn makes it more about exploring than an NPC telling you where to go next. It's liberating. The hardcore fans of this series were rewarded as well, with a chance of revisiting this iconic land. It was also a love letter with all your classic iconic music from the series cropping up throughout the world, and the original sound effects being reused from the very first game. This has given me hope for future games in the series, since it was beginning to stagnate, and there are talks that the new Zelda Wii U will be on the similar lines of a more open world structure like Skyrim. I am not including this new Destiny Warrior style game, but it does kind of look cool. I, however, couldn't award it number 1 because there were 2 more better games this year that impressed me a whole lot more. Naughty Dog, the creators of the successful PS3 series Uncharted, released its first new IP since 2007 called The Last of Us. This game is a massive departure from the Uncharted series by telling the tale of the end of the world to an infectious outbreak. This one being a spore-based infection that turns people into zombies. The most powerful part of this game was how the story was told. It felt like a AAA TV series on the lines of The Walking Dead or Game of Thrones. The characters were believable, well voiced, and the story took you to places that you wouldn't expect. The main character you'll be controlling is Joel, who, after surviving the initial outbreak, is now just living day by day in this post-apocalyptic world. This is until he meets Ellie, a young girl who has grown up only knowing what this new world is like. He is asked to escort her across America because she seems to have an immunity to the infection and could possibly have the cure within her. It's through this simple premise that you get one of the more powerful stories in gaming this year. What Naughty Dog has achieved as well is incredible. This world looks stunning, and all of this is coming from a 6-year-old console that has no rights to look this good. It is so detailed, and you will never be exploring the same locations twice. It's the small touches that makes this a believable world, and not just a lot of browns and greys that are common in video games these days. When not being distracted by the beauty of it all, you will have to tackle some environmental puzzles and fighting. The game is presented as a third-person action game with lots of cover walls to hide behind. You'll be wanting to tackle the game sneakily since Joel isn't an action hero and can die in just a few hits, especially near the beginning of the game when ammunition is low because, as stated at the beginning, the world is in ruins. The only thing that stops this game from being number one was by halfway through the game, the survival aspect was forgotten since ammo, equipment and multiple weapons rendered it meaningless. But as stated, this is one of the most powerful stories in gaming this year, and you got to play it. So, what made my number one? Let's find out.
Crom, we have to do something.
What do you propose we do?
I don't know.
I see you're awake now.
Hey there.
There are better places to take a nap than on the ground, you know. Give me your hand.
Fire Emblem Awakening is my game of the year. I've always had a soft spot for turn-based strategy games, ever since I played the original Shining Force 2 on the Mega Drive. I have tried getting into the Fire Emblem series in the past, but found it way too unforgiving. I am more or less giving up on it until the 3DS was graced with the latest in the series. First off, hardcore fans can expect the same brutal difficulty they come to expect from this series with permanent death for non-story based characters in your army. If you're a newcomer, you have the choice to ignore this fact in the more casual mode, which allows fallen units to be revived for the next battle. But why should you care if you lose a non-story based character? Well, it's because the writers and the translators at 84-bit have done a great job of giving each unit you recruit unique personality and charm. You will come to know each of them over the course of the game through interactions in combat and in the barracks after missions. After getting to know them, you'll be heartbroken when after poor choices you made on the battlefield could cause you to lose the unit you've come to love forever. The combat has a lot of depth as well, but is easy to pick up with its rock, paper, scissors combat. Each unit has a strength and weakness to weapons in the game. Swords beat axes, axes beat lances, lances beat swords. This simple rule will help you get through the earlier fights in the game, but it will get trickier when other classes come into play from mages, archers, clerics, dragons and more. Each mission is varied as well, and every battlefield offers different ways to approach it, with multiple routes and sometimes optional objectives. The game is long as well, spanning a good 20 to 30 hours, and it contains a lot of depths from relationships blossoming benefits on the battlefield and children off it as well. Multiple character class paths so you can customize the army you want, plenty of side missions and DLC content, smooth passing with other players' armies to trade and fight with, and so much more. From story, visual, music and gameplay, this was one of the most impressive titles this year. This, along with a long line of 3DS games, is making the 3DS device one of the most impressive pieces of hardware out there at the moment. So, what do you think? Should I have given something else number one instead, or are you happy with my top 10? Let me know in the comments below, subscribe and check out the other videos on my channel. Thanks for watching, and I will see you all in 2014. Bye.